briefly no more. I just want to repeat what Masali say and what Madam Aminata just say, that we not call this meeting specifically for one specific political party. In fact, in the notice where we send, we put on there boldly that everybody is free to attend, whether you did government or you did anyone with an interest in the elections in Sierra Leone. Both Sierra Leoneans at home and abroad are free to join our meetings. We will not ever restrict. In fact, the Zoom link, as you click on and so you're able to join us. So that shows that we are basically open to any shade of opinion will reflect the political divide in the country. Myself agree to the fact that we get 13 candidates, 13 presidential candidates, at least 13 presidential candidates, if I'm right, now they register for contest the presidential elections of 2023. And I emphasize the presidential elections specifically because the other forms of elections, they take proportional representation format. They are not first past the post in this case. So why are they emphasize the fact, say, 13 presidential candidates that they register, that the fact that election not just happen with the voting day, now almost what we call the apex or the zenith point of the election itself. You just start like you measure them or you liken them to the reproductive cycle. You get the incubation period, the period where the fetus is going to go through till you reach the contraction point, which is the labor and deliver. So the election day actually is the period of delivery. So what will lead to the process? What will lead to the process with the gateway to elections, to that particular election, the voting day, all constitute the electoral process. You don't understand? So we understand that one day. Why I say we, those of us in the Africanistpress and the Right for Justice, and all our friends and allies who believed in the work that we have done in holding political leaders accountable, especially holding the Madabio regime accountable, because some people then become aware of we work now and become more conversant and even determined either for support them or for undermine them during the Madabio period. And then we see this heightened interest. So those who have been following us for the last period will know, say, we understand, say, election is not just the voting day. Election is not just the registration period, but the election cycle starts with the development of the conditions for the election. What does that mean? Then therefore look at the legal framework which surround the election. The legal framework which surround the election, therefore even do with the taking into consideration geography and ethnography, or what you call population, demography, population dynamics. So if you go back, at least you go say the government not just, ECSL not just grab no more say this issue of register happened today. It was a cumulative process. From the period where Parliament sit down last year, June, if I remember, by March, April 2022, now Parliament, then they don't draft the law for change the 2012 election law. The law will be used for organized elections, now been the 2012 Public Elections Act. We then pass under APC time, like Ernest Kromah, and change the law. 2012, the APC under Ernest by Kromah changed the public elections law in 2012. 10 years later, APC is in opposition. Both APC and SLPP then come together for changing the law. Again, say they need new election law. The question will we be asked at the end of the day, why do we need a new election law? And what is going to be the provisions of the new election law? We're different from the elections law. We not only been talking, we even invite the whole Sierra Leonean public, including the whole world, say we'll have watched Parliament for 6 weeks consecutively. We'll not be the sleep safe. We wake up now 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, they post on Facebook, they follow parliamentary proceedings. People were honest enough, Sierra Leoneans say the first time they pay attention to Parliament was when the public elections bill was happening. How they come to know about it? Now we, Africanistpress, we not only publish the bill itself, the document itself, we also show say the document get provisions inside we get for do with change the entire election architecture in Sierra Leone. You not only get for change the name of the Electoral Commission, but also get for change how we register for vote. So the new election law will then pass, it then change the electoral register, how to register people there in the first place. What will the members of parliament may say? What is some of them be say? In fact, at the first time, there's some people who have been they say that support will work, they begin left for support will work. But that is not the point now. I try to tell you, say, those who are shouting or talking about public elections law, make them go back and register, make them go back and ask them parliamentarian and say, waiting the law, waiting the new law would have been passed. The leader of parliament for the APC, for example, then day, now in the deputy presidential candidate for the APC. Okay. The other opposition leader, Kande Yumkela, don't endorse Madabio for second time. We've been telling us say the election law we have for pass the parliament. The election law we go give Madabio an advantage. It will also give ECSL and Madabio for determine however they want to organize election. The terms and conditions of how elections are going to be organized is there. And the law also say the president get the power for sack the electoral commissioner under the grounds of misconduct, the same word where they use for sack Lara Tilopias, then put her inside the new law. So with the grounds of misconduct would have go determinant. So this argument about change law, so when I go read the law, I don't want to spend my time to talk about this because for me, as they say, the election cycle are phases by phases by phases. The fact of the matter is we have an election date, which is June 24, 2023. The election, they don't do somebody do the gap and talk out. It is conditioned by law. The law stipulates when election will happen, when parliament will close, when president they declare, say parliament don't close, they don't shut down parliament don't close, members of parliament don't become ordinary members now, they all for compete for go back to the parliament. So as it is, we do not have a legislative assembly. We will not get parliament in the first place right now. We will not get city members of parliament right now. Right now in a period of elections. But within this period of election, the president of the country, the presidency not get a vacuum. There is no vacancy there. The president therefore stay as president until the next election, we could determine whether he is going to continue or a new president is going to be sworn in. We law and talk say nobody will take power in a salon except through election. Anybody who try to take power in a salon without election is committing an act of treason. So when I go back, if I want to know that here, when I go back to the Africanistpress website, some people waiting at this Zoom, and they're not going to let for everything to say. But I know they talk about things for please somebody. You don't understand. So I talk about these issues because they're not surprised when we see them. But it's not a question of whether I'm right or not, because we all get an interest in making sure we get accountable leadership, democratic leadership. Whosoever is going to be the next president, will constitute the next government, let them be elected through the popular will of the people. It always be the case, say no president will be, nobody will be president as alone, will be saying everybody in a salon elected. If you check the margin of difference between would I go be president and would I lost, a tiny one in the last election is not even above 2% in both rounds of the election, which means almost over 40-something% of the Sierra Leonean public never approved of Madabio as president of the country in both rounds of the election. Tiny margin. Now, less than 2% or up to only 2% of the people that they add that in the way change the scale. Why is that important? For make we understand, say, the majority of people disapprove, go always there against minority, we will lose an election, not really a minority, a significant majority, where you get beaten by a tiny minority, where you give the other candidate an advantage. So in this case, I don't want to repeat what the law says here, whether this register or so. All the one who talk so about this election, they are not new to elections. The election law of the Public Elections Act of 2022, we'll go read that. Now that law they talk say ECSL for use NCRA record for register. Most people will register, not only registration, no, that the existing database that they use. ECSL not only use NACRA database, but they use NACRA computers, NCRA computers for register. It did it. We publish the money where they allocate for buy machine there. They're not buying. We all know that they will sing and pass how many months up to them there. In fact, the company we print the ID cards, we don't also show us say Parliament even approve the contract for give the company the ID card construct with them, the ID card printing company. Now, Sierra Leonean company owned by SLPP politicians. Them. Okay, some of the company get the shareholders are your APC people. Parliament passed that act day, the 15th of March last year. What should have been do 15th of March last year? Would have been they launched the Parliament been the support degree campaign. They made the support police brutality movement. Now attention until June when we published the first article where it shows say this law, this bill where Parliament once more will pass through Parliament. Make a law, you get NCR, you get NIN, so I know we will register. So we don't need for go through, when I go back to that conversation. If I want to be honest to ourselves, when I go back, but what in like that, what in them when we talk about protest, we don't want election, we don't want boycott, then the corner for go. Maybe in a matter be one corner for go, but matter be the law when I talk so, with the parliamentarian in the past, it give matter be you the power for sack corner on grounds of misconduct. He did it. Gross misconduct. He did it. He didn't have the law. We've been talking last year. He also give the president and the electoral commissioner for determining the terms and conditions under which. So he give Kone more power. He give Madabio more power for determining how the election. I would have given that power. They don't have members of parliament, the politicians, the way they contest the election. We tell them, I say, the elections law, now part of the process for make them give Madabio an advantage in the election. We know we talk say rig the election. Because for me, as far as we're concerned, still, nobody has won the elections yet. Until they vote, then count the vote, then announce a winner. Even if the processes are flawed, we can point to flawed processes leading up to the voting day. But I cannot say the flawed processes, the elections have already been rigged. Yes, these are all rigging mechanisms. When politicians begin to change law for give an incumbent party the advantage, opposition politicians, even where registration one for can, then he fed first at the country. The fed not happen all sides of the country. It happened only in Freetown, the McKinney, the north and northwest, who side the opposition get stronghold. Because we talk say this law when they pass, it not go only give Madabio advantage for control the terms and conditions of the election, but it will make it difficult for anybody for register for vote, especially people that we within us places where the incumbent would think say they go vote against that. Where they are reaching the hip fed, they not only make it difficult for the hip fed force. Where the fed happen, August 10, they begin arrest massively. What the opposition method? Hey, police don't arrest so person. They don't arrest Ade Macaulay. They don't arrest so. They don't arrest so. They don't arrest so. And what do they know? People are saying they run away. The very party organizers for organize people and medicate them. They say don't arrest them because they do not want them to organize people for register. What may happen? Now we be happy to do this same Zoom meeting, right, for justice. Call people and say, "Una come out, una register, we take." Now, when we announce they investigate the August 10 incident, now after that, the government announced it and they investigate. A lot of things. Following that one, the way registration starts, people and turn up. They don't be expecting people and they for turn up for car register. The amount of people who come up for register, the unprecedented self. Old mommy there, young people there. First-time voters, old people, under Reno, September last year. People in the car for register, machine no day, camera no day, everything no day. So these problems where council I say register, those are the issues your politicians will have championed. But what tell me that over the raise, in fact, COP with Richard Conte, they all hold press conference. Now that small town hall. What did Richard Conte say? When I go review the video with Femi Closcole and then his bride there. They say they know they talk about the corruption and ECSL. You know they mention Africanistpress first. Make that the other. What is them concerned about the first-time voters? That is what they said. When I go back, when I look on the couple, I post, I say, we criticize them. I say, when they left the main issues, when they talk about things, they went into the main issues. Then go bring even first-time voter them for camp. People who don't arrange to I can't talk at the press conference, so and so. So your politicians are really dishonest. They not get the interest of the public at heart. They not care. And most of the talk about demonstration, they cannot put their kids on the street to demonstrate. Instead, then they hide. If you look, most of these people are organizing this demonstration for help Mother Bio, and then they try to do so, for tilt the political landscape in favor of Bio. This is why we are saying we don't want violence. Because the innocent people, they die. The innocent people will suffer. The innocent people, not only politicians and their family, then they suffer. No. And in the final way election happen, anybody will win. Now the very politician they back, now they go they loot public money, now they give themselves big salary, now they loot per diem. Ordinary people will still do the same. So why the ordinary people for suffer for these crooks in power, in political parties? So for me, we cannot repeat how far we don't come on, but we still say under the current circumstances, the government will still realize, say, it go difficult for pull out, for just rig that kind of way. Because for making organized election, you get law where you say, okay, I should organize the election. The law also allow you, they don't register, they don't circulate ID cards. When they print the voter register, the provisional voters register, the law talks say they for exhibit for 2 weeks. When they put them out, what did your party say? Not to you in the hala, the post say, Teriku code and Kanda Yumkela, they talk, they maintain silence. All of una. Some people, I get the cost, I get the insult then, the audio then and the text messages that people in the cost with the WhatsApp. Inside with your forums, including members of parliament. So we know that, but for I know one for repeat. So we call this meeting basically for continue that tradition, for educate people and say the citizens of Sierra Leone, they have rights. Those rights are constitutional rights. Those rights include the right for choose would have a vote for them. And the one that we been come up for register, some not able for register. Some them register after we put pressure. In fact, what we don't advocate now ambassadors, embassies, foreign embassies, then ambassadors. Now they be work all over the country for telling people come on, I can't vote, I can't register, I can't register, I can't register. The politicians never did that. They not. In fact, APC not be even get party. Then lie say then put party agents in. Now registration centers. We collect evidence now. Yeah. Some of that evidence we give to organizations privately for certain people that know they monitor the registration. Some of that information is what has led to the current interest in looking at the elections. So now politicians don't want to tell you that. They don't want to make us say that too. But we know what we have done. We know they do what they do because one take praise for them. But when I go back and look, at our party, when I look, okay, say Ahmed Sise, we say now the delegated representative of APC now PPLC. In fact, now first announced say ECSL, the extension we talk say ECSL announced data of registered voters after the first round. Therefore, show we how they register by they make a breakdown. We say therefore even extended the registration. Ahmed Sise was the first person we talk about 2 days. I remember what he say, what we talk now, I say what he say. Now he say they make audio. He make audio. We get the audio where he make audio for criticize Ahmed Sise. Another APC person make audio, he insult what he say you're not supposed to talk, I say na ECSL position. And indeed, ECSL pulled down statement for validate Ahmed Sise in position, say yes, na 2 days. Basically, APC that then suggest, the APC caretaker executive people that then suggest, say that 2 days no more they will put as extension for the registration. So if we're really honest to ourselves, we know to party at the lane and party, we care about our fellow citizens of Sierra Leone, you just have to go back to these records and look at them. These are not allegations. The conversation and drama we have in front of we. It's not even less than 12 months. Because the first article we published, I think around June 20 or 22. Because Parliament started the conversation, I think June 20. By the 22nd of June or so, or 27th of June, thereabout, if Pamasali check the record, you will see it. We even published a letter where it shows say on that day, they then give them 2.8 billion. Now in the Minister of Finance transfer immediately that the neck, that's in a neck, ECSL account. And ECSL withdraw the money the following day, the day where Parliament start the pre-legislative discussion on the public elections bill. 2.8 billion, we then transfer immediately send a second allocation of funds. The money all in clearer.
And there was no major, was no major activity. There was no
major activity. That money, ask them parliamentarians, who said that money go. Who said that Ghana must go, then they will then go to them. They will have been asked, what we talking? Show me evidence. The APC that I tell you, show me evidence that Charlie is not sell out. Show me evidence that they don't make so. And you are coming here and saying, some of them they say, what they tell them, say no violence, no violence. You notice some of them they say, Amanda, they say we na power. So bizarre. So when I go at the advice now, I say this preamble first. When I go read the law, when I go take the, when I not get time, I think say after this meeting, we will publish the Public Elections Bill, Public Elections Act of 2022, to make everybody they read, they will read the legislation, page to page, when I read that, when I see what in the law, where it talks about for register, how they will exhibit the provisional register, what are the role of the Electoral Commissioner, what are the powers of the Electoral Commissioner, what are the powers of the President for appoint, what are the powers of the President for sack, how do they remove an Electoral Commissioner, all them here. What a good day. In fact, I remember when I raised that issue, they asked me, Yusuf Sharif, he argued with me on my Facebook page. They say, gross misconduct, in fact, not a serious thing. In fact, I had to block her on my page. Because that was, for me, a lawyer of that nature. So for that, I'd be the NGC position, but we knew the NGC wanted the bill. So this, if we check on ourselves no more, some of us check on ourselves and check how far we don't come up with this. So what do we care about? We call this election education series for educate Sierra Leoneans about what they need for exercise the right for vote, how we go protect the vote, how we go ensure say we mitigate violence, make nobody not die in a yard, make no fete not take place, make nobody, they don't already begin saying they don't begin burn house there. They don't begin to bang people then, motorcade the accident, people they die. Gruesome pictures of bloodshed is already coming out of elections. Already we get all this international attention to Sierra Leone, just like how we get 2000 when the war been happened. So we don't need that. Now that make me say with a call for peace, full conduct of the elections. If anything, political parties right now, 2 weeks to election, and for the prepare how for monitor election. But I want to point out an important thing. I don't call some of these presidential candidates there where I know. I ask them, wait, this talk what they are saying when I want to postpone election are true. Some of them say they are not aware of such conversations and it's not on their table. And as a journalist, I'm right for call and cross-check information. So far, I continue to insist, the call for the postponement of election, the call for boycott election, the call for protest, I know area 8 come out directly from any of the presidential candidates where they contest the election, from the APC candidate, the SLPP candidate with Amanda. In fact, Amanda don't talk say in one election, apart from the threat where the threat say go crush anybody with protest. But government will get to understand government's duty is to maintain law and order. If I give government the latitude for crush down people there, dictators will not get sent. They want that in an election. I don't issue a message yesterday or a day ago where I talk about why we frown against violence, because they serve the interest of ordinary people. They serve the interest of opposition parties. Violence in elections, always the states and they win. If you meet up leader, we not care, then they always win. You got to be a very serious political leader. We care about people and not for see bloodshed, not for see people and kill. But if you don't care, you will massacre people in the name of protecting law and in maintaining law and order. Between the political parties where they contest election right now, all the 13 presidential candidates, would I get control over the police? And would I get control over the jails? Would I get control over the court system? Would I get control over the fire force? Would I get control over Pademba Road? Now, one great candidate, Madabu, is the only candidate in the election that has access to the central bank, that has access to the Sierra Leone Commercial Bank, that has access to the National Treasury, that has access to the police, the army, the courts, everything. And now I see the EU observers in the Guna court ask the Chief Justice what are the redress mechanisms for elections. So without this external pressure, external surveillance, external peer review, peer pressure, where foreign governments, they try to put pressure, they have limits too. But now we call on them, say, do you want to come help we for tell them politicians, yeah, because don't find out the opposition now, the ruling party now, we don't know who that again. They all don't talk one mommy, one daddy. Then we don't expose them so to the point that now opposition or ruling party or all don't box up, mix up. You know, they will know who's one and who's one. Try to be physical, you can opposition. Now na ruling party. The possible way tell you say, Mother Bio na John Tao, now they say Mother Bio for get second term. They all, in fact, they not scatter their own party. In fact, they not agree for contest election again. They don't want to be president for now. So that is the extent to which we are. So we even know who is an opposition politician and who is not an opposition politician. We don't know. We're not able to draw the distinctions. So until election happen, we see maybe, and most of the opposition politicians, all the people, for example, they support Mother Bio, majority of them, they are both APC and SLPP politicians, former ministers, former parliamentarians, former political appointees, some in the open, some in the hidden. Deliberate. We have asked myself, why make the former president, who is an APC politician, he not able to make statement for say, make the organized peaceful election. Nobody not say endorse any candidate, but that's his responsibility as a senior citizen. He not do it. So these are all questions. So for we, Right for Justice, we call this meeting for begin talk about the electoral timetable. Already June 24. We not get, until we get a position statement from the candidates, then 13 candidates, that if they all come on and say, no, we don't want this election right now. We think, say, ECS are not competent for organized election. Then we also see the concerns. They will say, okay, the political parties. That will be the basis of conversation, whether there's merit or no merit, whether they get basis for talk or they not get basis for talk. So far, now ordinary people, we know they contest the election, and then don't begin to say the candidates are already campaigning. The day where they announce campaign, where they do nomination, where they don't nominate for the APC, for example, then being petitioned the young candidate, they say not be one the young candidate for even be candidate. APC politicians who now then go to court, they say no want her. They say they want for know whether in corruption case go, yeah, it's supposed for contest. The court say we don't entertain that kind of conversation. We knock out with the paper in the right way. So if the court been ruled on that, they say then candidate, the APC not get candidate, the candidate not supposed to contest. The question is APC for the talk about register right now, or for the talk about how to get candidate. Mother Bio for wait for them say make them make candidate for making contest election or not. Those are the questions. The APC people, most of the when you check the list of people who even have been witnesses to the APC candidate, some of them are APC people who worked in the foreign affairs ministry and embassies that they serve as witnesses in a court matter that involved money published by the Africanistpress, details of which showed that monies were stolen by officials of the BO regime, including Mother Bio himself. So we don't move from that point today to the point where the candidate was nominated. Nobody not talk about register. Nobody not talk about the ID cards. Nobody not talk about the substandard nature of the ID cards. They not talk about the corruption. They not talk about all of the problems associated with ECSL. Now, what do we talk about? The petition. They don't petition the candidate. After they petition the candidate, the court ruled against the candidate, then automatically we saw what? Now we don't want election again. For boycott election. There is no election. You cannot just sit down and say boycott, because any one day we add on the term of limit for the president and period between the period of organized election and organizer. Now, you don't illegitimize the president. And we are not under a civil war. We're not to Sudan. We're not to Somalia. So we don't call this meeting basically for talk about, I insist for talk about whether Mother Bio for extend election or not for extend election, we need corner. No. We call this election for talk about this number of things: voter education, voter participation, how for monitor, election monitoring. We don't talk about voter education, say, may them go read the law, we're going to do some of that. So because of the time I don't take, I will just talk about how for monitor elections. Election monitoring, in my own understanding, both as an actor, we don't participate in election, and somebody who don't observe elections as a journalist over the years, identify key segments of election observation. The role of citizens, what we call citizen monitors. The second one, the role of political parties in monitoring elections, or make sure, say, the elections, the election day, the voting, because I think we did so now. We don't come out from the law, the bill, we don't come out from the registration, we don't come out from candidate, the candidate profiling and nomination. We don't come out there, we don't cancel the election calendar and campaigns. Right now, we need to monitor the campaigns, what did happen, incidents in the campaigns, the brutality, police restrictions. In fact, one of the things like me, what I see, what I observe, who don't know so far, now the absence of equal media coverage. The incumbent party in Amana, they get more media coverage, more than the other political parties where they contest the election. You see every propaganda, even on social media, you see more of Madabio than you see of the other 12 presidential candidates, including even the APC. So that imbalance in media coverage in itself, it is skew the advantage. And when I talk about the amount of public resources that have been used by the incumbent party in its own campaign rallies, public money, we published the other day about 10 billion we then transfer just for funding the local and overseas travel account we might be able to travel with. Because it's so overwhelming, we for even sit down and begin put out all of this information, how much this campaign don't cost we the people of Sierra Leone on the side of the SLPP as the incumbent party. Almost money and withdraw from the public, from the central bank for just transport crowds and transport and your motorcade and vehicle. It is at the expense of the public purse, not to the party money. We get the evidence of direct funding where they come off from the central bank going into the president's local overseas travel account that's been increasingly used, not to talk about money that is being given to the first lady for campaign when they're using campaigns. That has not been talked about. These are issues. How much of we treasury with public funds is being used in SLPP campaign for a second term? In political parties, when they campaign, they cannot use political, if they are incumbent, they cannot use, they are not justification when they use public funds. Therefore, use the new party in funds. Now the party, and if you let company fund themselves, like mining companies, and they fund them, a problem if you are an incumbent, because there has to be a payback. So these issues are there. So for we, I don't think they would on track as far as the campaign they go. But where we are now, 2 weeks to election, now, voting for citizens, what can we do to monitor? We don't launch Right for Justice with Africanistpress don't launch what we call an incident recording form. We are one of the tools what they use. People and they even send we different information. So I can then paper submit. But some are sending serious things. The good thing is it allows for some kind of a way, give people the tool for me them feel so they can report information. That information with the user, multiple ways, through we own advocacy, through we own behind it, and for understand how the landscape they go. So citizens can develop their own systems of monitoring. And as the election is near, when they begin to deploy electoral officers, that we intend also for spread them out, for roll out new tools on how to track ballot box distribution, election material distribution, the distribution of staff. Already we don't publish the entire list of ECSL or NEC employees where you show would they hire, how much they pay, would in promotion, we start and deploy each people then, and even a profile in election management, we will not publish that. Way back October 2021, we will not do that. We show even the cleaner, down to the cleaner of corner, young cleaner, not in salary when they pay housemaid. We show all of that. So moving forward, we got to roll out more of the public citizens, public monitoring tools where we can map whether there are more polling stations in Bo than McKinney, or whether there are more ballot boxes in the south than the north, or the north and the south. So across regions, how they distribute polling stations and the distance between polling stations. These are all metrics where we observe. On we own as citizens, we intend for roll until they are out. And we get people on the ground too, where they do entire for we. Some of our, we talk about them because we know already how the situation contaminates. So citizens can do that on their own, including the fact that during the election day, we also prepare, like how we've been prepared for registration, we people will go register and not again. That will be most of the videos that went out came through us. Now when we start, other people begin to come. We intend to continue that tradition too, on monitoring the activities on the day of elections, whether people, they go vote easily, any difficulty encountered during the voting, and what redress mechanisms, and whether political parties get actual party agents or polling agents in those areas. So that on the citizens, ordinary citizens, we use ordinary citizens and ordinary citizens also will be coordinated by we own people who don't train for do that. And the systems we don't put in place for do that. Basically, what we Africanistpress and Right for Justice don't do. So that's one example. We encourage each and every citizen for develop a credible system within their own community, including your own village self, for make sure say the voting will take place, they able to know how the thing they go, you report them. We therefore make a public numbers and all that, we will report to you directly, incidents happening in your own area, and we go verify. If we say credible, we go report them, we go post them, publish them, or we send them to somebody within the area, observers within the area, we will take action and check. That is what happened during the registration of the see all these diplomats and other organizations with the worker all across the country during registration when our MPs they are sitting down in the bedroom. So political parties, what can political parties do in this case? Political parties, number one, when are the major stakeholders, they have to, it's a must, they have to develop their own party, sophisticated, robust party monitoring system from the ward, polling station by polling station, and for check all the details that what will they say. The political parties for make sure say each polling center and polling station and voting room, voting center get all of the things that we have to look for from the voters register, the verification of the register, the verification of people who are voting, making sure whosoever has voted has their identification, their body inked, the indelible ink. So party agents and polling agents, and not only that, a coordinated system. That is SLPP been beat the APC last time, where their system of tabulation was sophisticated and more robust than the APC, because APC been take the things say then they have power, so then control the system. After the first round, APC people and government begin arrest even NEC officials, the electoral officials, saying that they don't help the opposition for rig, because they never planned how to even monitor the election, because they took for granted that they were in power. If political party, no matter how you get registered, we clean 1,000,000%, we be say the person go there 100 miles, you don't see in picture. If you do not have credible and competent party agents and polling agents where they monitor your election, you definitely cannot win the election, because you know we will get robust party monitoring. They allow political party candidates to even know exactly when they have won an election or when they are winning. Citizens, an effective citizen monitoring system can also help us independently to know that the ex-candidate has won or is going to win. So these are all mechanisms where we intend say political party monitoring FOB. We plan also to write some of these articles, guide political parties. We intend to publish in the next couple of days processes through which elections can be monitored. Now, this takes me to the other component, civil society movements as independent actors, or whether they are even partisan, can also likewise develop their own salon. The only thing we know now new national elections watch where they coordinate everybody. But apart from that, independent civil society organizations can do their own. There is also, I can repeat and get their own systems again the same way, and no one for repeat the same thing. Media monitoring of the elections. The media already, they say they're not set up what they call I-Verify. When I look at it, I-Verify, they verify. It's so funny. If you back at the other day, they say they don't verify, say Diana Konomani, a house born, then born in house. So they don't check the video and then go check and the interview the police and say, yes, the house born. Verification that too. What you would expect of verification in that case is for them to go further to show exactly or talk about how the house was
exactly
claims, who are the potential perpetrators or alleged perpetrators, the circumstances which generate the flames, how the house got the conflagration took place. That is what they never talked about how, who, why it happened, stuff like that. They just talk about it. Yes, we already know say it happened. It is not born. Not to that we want to verify. We want to verify the circumstances. So that either lack of competence or lack of good faith. So, but the media, what I'm trying to say is that the media get a crucial role for play. Where there's effective media monitoring, there is hardly going to be a possibility where rigging will take place inside the public or independent actors like the international observers, where usually can depend. Part of the work of also survey media. In fact, what did we do? Media monitoring was what we did by unveiling the fact, say, Parliament, they try to change the elections law. Not only that, move on from reporting to advocacy by asking the public to look at Parliament and send messages to your MPs and demanding that they don't pass that law as it was. So media monitoring also can highlight some of these things. And we don't already do them. We don't do them before now for the past year. The report on the Electoral Commission, the electoral process, both in private comment, in my own personal comment, and also with colleagues that will report corruption and the theft of public funds, electoral funds. So we intend for, along with the Right for Justice campaign, report on these things publicly as the elections roll by. So of course, we already know international observers. What in this mean? It also means that you cannot organize elections. Now, these are for a response to the question of the elections have been rigged. The steps where we don't come out so far has been rugged, has been really tough, including the fact say Madabio and your wife be not talk say Madabio is going unopposed. Till we wonder how can a candidate who's ten as Salo, they talk about a candidate contesting a presidential election and winning unopposed. Now one party state, that she can still be in time. So we were surprised and we wonder how possible, how it will happen. So we saw that they wanted to eliminate two things, but we've been saying two methods that they want to use: voter suppression and candidate exclusion. Now both strategies don't appear to fail so far, because people actually registered more than the government wanted them to register. That's the fact. They may want to cut down registration more than how they cut down. In fact, when they first register, key people within neck, some people in opposition politicians can't cite me. They say that less than 2 million people register. As soon as I say anybody say that, they make the person publish the record. If they publish that record, they will publish the full database of ECSL and NCRA. So I thought then they are go to the point I even post publicly, say over 3 million people that are registered for vote 2018. So any figure we will come for 2023, supposed to exceed that. But we check the figures of 2018 and 2023. I don't know if you almost know to the same. Pamasani are the same, eh?
No, a big small more past the last time.
A couple of figures. But even at that, when ECSL are announced, say they don't delete some people because of double registration. We talk about now. In fact, now we highlight the fact say the published record we ECSL don't announce and don't delete over thousands of voters away. Now the combination of NGC and C4C, then combined total of votes. Now in them don't delete from the record. What did your MPs do? Nothing. So now the one way don't register, the same ID card we and Escromaga for vote with, the same one we Madabioke for vote with, now the same ID card they were all get. So there's a lot of disinformation out there spread by the very politicians there. Maybe they hope say Madabioke will go unopposed. So how me see personally, how we assess the political landscape based on what we know publicly and what we know again by nature of the job what we do, that the fact that a significant sector of the opposition, they try, where they in alliance with Madabioke, they try to create the conditions now for conflict, for making them able to suppress voters. The people that will register will come off for vote. Because I think in one statement, Connell say people with valid registration slip can even vote. If I remember.
That's correct.
Okay. So which means if you turn up for vote where you get out your registration slip, you don't get your ID card, you can vote according to that. If I remember the press conference statement self, I got a reviewer. So in this case, what do political parties do in this circumstance is how to monitor the elections. So far, the election date is June 24. And to be honest with you, even if this is 13 political party candidates are saying they postpone the election, what is the legal basis for that? Maybe the lawyers will argue around that one day. What's the legal basis? But as far as me concerned, some of the political party presidential candidates who I don't talk to, who I don't call, they told me directly. I'm not going to name the names there and say that is not part, it's not on the table of what we're considering. Some of them even say what they are thinking about is how to train their party agents and polling agents. So for me, we have to massify information and tell people them, if you really care about the corruption will not happen, you really tire with the current party within power, you really there for the opposition or you there for the ruling party, make everybody come out for vote. Let us put the pressure on the ECSL for distribute equal polling stations, equal ballot boxes, equal number of ballot boxes, and the required election materials across region, make them available. And when I tell you political parties, then for those of you who support political parties and candidates, ask them what have they prepared in terms of their own systems of monitoring. On we own side as independent actors, and here, this is part of what we're doing. This Zoom meeting are part of the effort for educate people from the distance where we are. If we've been there on the ground, a different thing. But from where we are, this is some of the only things we can do to hold conversations like this and talk about what we think unfiltered information coming from our own side, both as people who also don't put their life on the line for hold this government accountable and also highlight across the board politicians who we know do not want the current situation to change. And the fact now that many of the people who support these politicians, it's painful for them because, you know, you love your politicians, you love your political parties, but the fact of the matter is that some of them, again, like they are our schoolmates, friends, but we're able to look beyond those personal relationships and say, you know, what can be done to address all of this situation. So we're not going to change. I not see the possibility within the legal possibility for change the election date at this point. You know, Madabio be not even sure say election. What Madabio is saying is that the opposition don't want election, and that's a lie. If anything, the incumbent party is fearful of elections. They are fearful of free and fair elections. In fact, then they want to use the police and the army for frustrate voters. Any protest happen in Sierra Leone right now, the only place they can affect now Freetown, McKinney, the northeast places the way August 10 affect. Who you expect, if they put ballot box right now, na Lursa, and Tombo, and McKinney, between the 13 political candidates there, you already know the answer. Who is likely to receive more votes in those areas? We know the answer. You don't have to answer it. You expect people in Atombo who have gone through all of them don't go through, or Alonsa, or you know, all these other places there. They put ballot box. In the past, we don't go as far as for talk say an empty ballot box safe. Then put Anaya, then put Madabio in a free and fair competition. Madabio cannot beat the empty ballot box. Then I've always tried that argument again and talk say, Madabio can only rig the election with the assistance of the opposition. And one way you want for do one for disqualify anybody when a serious candidate we know say one for we know say get the potential for bitter and serious about winning, so that we'll get a proxy candidate that will allow him to rig the election, because those candidates will think they have time for 2028. We don't talk about all that in the day. I'm not going to repeat it again. Then we go as far as even we call them to strategy, candidate exclusion through the use of the judiciary and ECSL. We say voter suppression through the use of ECSL and parliament. We talk about state capture, how that has affected the political landscape. When I go back and look, then conversation, they are still on YouTube and Facebook. Nobody don't expect me to go back to that kind of conversation anymore because it's immaterial. At this stage, the candidates, they're not always say they know a contest election. So ask yourself, when, for example, when APC then campaigned in Africa, well, they say, you know the campaign candidate, you get her offered. The APC, huh?
The next date for APC, to the 19th or the 18th.
Okay. So now, if you have protests that has started today, waiting to the 12th, 13th, 14th, you scatter people in a freedom. You scatter people in a all the side in day. Do you expect a rally to take place? Do you expect campaign to happen?
Sorry.
It's a disruption of the calendar, deliberate disruption of the electoral calendar, deliberate disruption of electoral activity. But in the meantime, it does not disrupt the SLPP's campaign. The SLPP get police, then get army. In fact, today they show video, whether not true, or images of Madabio with scary police officers and all of this. We do not need a militarized environment where voters will vote. We are not at war. Don't create war. Don't create the panic and fear. People know they go in the street because if they tell them, say, fete they take place, you don't expect any peace-loving Sierra Leonean to go to the street, not because they obey and order not to go to the street. No, they don't want violence. And some of these politicians are, they are incapable. The state is captured. These are the danger of corruption, and kleptocracy. That don't happen. So people who have stolen money in the past 10 years, who fear that they still have their necks and their feet tied, and they can only survive by trading the country into crisis like this to protect their own stolen wealth. That's what we're dealing with. It's such a complicated and intricate environment where the corruption that has happened, especially in the last 10 years, is haunting us. And this you see the lack of character in people when they switch across parties. It is, and I have gone as far as saying we get a situation where 80% of the Sierra Leonean elite get the possibility for lose their current status and then privileges if Madabio is defeated. In fact, a defeat of Madabio is not just a defeat for the SLPP, now a defeat of the opposition elements within the APC, within other political parties, and the professional class, academics, lawyers, bankers, and other people who are reflected in some of the publications they wouldn't publish. We know this. This is why some of them don't like what we do. So we can salvage this situation. In my last message, I said there is still a possibility under the circumstances for the popular will and determination of the people of Sierra Leone for triumph over this evil situation. The government and the ruling party and their allies have seen that. They don't see it. Now they're making they spread this information. Now they're making they want to create chaos. They want to create crisis because they can only triumph through crisis. The same way we will tell us a parliament has sold out. Parliamentary leaders, they've sold out. Some of them are not being believed. Who's on that today now? Where is Kanda Yumkala? Where is the NGC? Where is C4C? If the APC people are not able to declare again, therefore they will able to hide and try to disrupt the election because perhaps winning the election cannot be advantageous to them. I know you have some APC people and they say, if they win the election, they're not going to get share in Samura Kamara government. I don't know how that is about because for me, it's not like Anti-Ami say, it's not only Samura Kamara and Madabio. Unfortunately, we are talking about because they dominate the political landscape. The political parties where they say they challenge them, they have not shown any seriousness in doing that. So that this may talk about Kanda Yumkela now because you know already seen a Madabio they vote for. In fact, it don't prevent NGC voters from getting candidate we never vote for other than Madabio or Samura Kamara. That's what has happened. Anyway, so these are the things that we will do. In the next couple of days, we will roll out the instruments of WION monitoring of the election. We get also roll out what we think say political parties in WION findings, get for pay attention to methods and skills. How we know say the threats to free and fair balance. So the threats to free and fair election, threat metrics as what I say, Colin. What we think the means, the tactics and strategy we think say Madabioga for use for giving self-advantage as an incumbent, and how the opposition or other political parties will also able to counter that in a peaceful environment. But we guarantee you can only stop rigging in a peaceful environment. If there is violence, the political party in power, they get 1,000,000% advantage for rigging the election. Political observation of elections can stop rigging of an election and guarantee transition in a peaceful environment. Incumbent politicians are aware of that, which is why they always try to create the chaos as a last means for disrupt election for their own advantage. So political violence, in the case of Sierra Leone as it is right now, will not benefit any opposition politician. It will benefit the ruling party. And if it's orchestrated through the opposition, it gives the opposition party 10 million times more advantage. I mean, the ruling party, 10 million times more advantage than it will give to the opposition. That makes it say the people that they call for violence and riot, now they call out on behalf of Madabio, but it's coming out of the mouth of opposition politicians who are not even in the opposition campaigns, but then they inside the opposition executives, they are hidden. It's a contaminated political environment. Sierra Leone is a rotten kettle of fish. You do not, it's difficult to select which one is the healthy fish inside this whole situation. So you just have to see what you can throw out and what you can get and assume, say, we have just fish here. You know, maybe if we fry them all, we put on all the same matter, we don't fry and the scent will go away. Now that are the whole, that's where we are. I hate to make this lecture because people they condemn, but it's good for me. Why I'm commenting, I comment some of these things because as Wari said, I can make one audio, which I am always opposed to, where he says some of the information where he knows say may hold, if we release them, it will affect crises that happen. And I'm very mindful of the crisis in the country. I'm very mindful of how much information we put out, how we put out that information, and minimize the possibility of crisis coming out of the work that I do, which is why I don't go to the point of taking the responsibility for beginning to say peace, in a whole peaceful environment. Because I know say, if there is a peaceful election with effective monitoring, international, local, and independent monitoring of the election, make on announce results say, na Madabio win, we're not to win. How you go do it? When by the time that will happen, we will already know who is winning. We are all invested in making sure that the dictatorship does not flourish in Sierra Leone. If we not be invested in, we know they do the risk we take. The risk is risky to publish details of a sitting president, the wife, all ministers in the country. Now, we don't need to repeat that. Some of you people came to know us through that way, through that work. And we don't need to do this work for make we survival. Not to the engagement now, yeah, this is how we spend now, they make we all. Nobody's paying us. We don't get a salary, pay this compensation. We just committed to the country make we do this. So I just want for advice, say, make we reduce the possibility of conflict. We all get role for play. That role, and we think say that part of that role they make we organize this meeting. So I want to tell Masali, thank you. There are other issues who have been done highlight, but I'm not going to talk about them. Maybe if people ask questions, I want to give other people in time. Sorry, I apologize for this, but we want to give this background. We're not going to go back for talk about ECSF, we don't TIF this, don't TIF the information, did it? We're not going to our website, not go see it. But now, the June 24 election, if we are saying that the boycott, if APC boycott election, there are 12 other parties. That then the type of make Madabio on oppose. That they want. And then beyond the talk say they want Madabio to go on oppose. If Samura Kamara say no, they contest the election now, then they say the postpone election, Madabio might need parliamentary. That's a constitutional crisis by its own. So not to like way they say are the married woman, you know, we don't agree say with the married, so but you know what, we not get the money not complete for party, so we make this with shame. People don't come pass, so more we change the date, more can go after 3 months. I mean, like illiteracy nobody calls that name because election is based on rules. Observers do not just go to say how to vote, then they follow that. What are the laws? What are the redress mechanisms? Now maybe they meet up, now they go to court, meet with the Chief Justice, meet with ECSL, meet with political parties. They want to know what is the preparation of these parties, what is the framework for the election, what are the redress dispute mechanism, we will address all of this. So not to fiancé business where they say tomorrow we married, but then we discover say the party money not do it. So what make we postpone the date first. Till we don't get so, or we plan for go honeymoon this time we don't go able. We plan this holiday, but we not get holiday money. So more we make our next year now we'll go holiday. It's not like that. It is a constitutional requirement for organized election. After everything.
I can come in with an observation, please.
No, okay. Wait, sir. Wait for your turn.
Okay.
No, wait.
So I don't say that. Make we focus on putting the at floor, the monitoring of the election. We the play part. I know say Pamasali, then say the organization they play their part with the watch the data when they pull. We go help for promoter, send them and look them and debater. So it's a tense time. We all vex now. The amount of insults we say don't get in kind of day. The amount of death threats we don't get in kind of day. All kind cost. No political party not in a salon where the supporter I know don't cost me. But you know, it better. I can just tell them say Antina is now we dey. We are not able for kill we. Philip Neville been dead. They don't banga. They say Okada banga. He don't die. He not see the election. No. So nobody not talk about what he don't kill Philip Neville. That killer. How that Okada? Who said the Okada? They the same thing. But that policeman when they call how they call him Boyka. We cannot have a country like that. We are people. We just take one rotten Okada, come bang a serious citizen and kill her. He left off. Or somebody from nowhere take gun, go shoot somebody and kill her. We can't remember this so. And not this will become the only monster because we have dangerous politicians across these political parties who have formed an alliance against the national interest. If you now begin look at matter, you cannot just look at the symptom of the crisis and avoid looking at the entire crisis in its holistic form. So that's my own contribution that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Cherno. That was